Question, and may not be so deep or complicated. I try to say every day the Yom Tehillim. Then I wonder, maybe it's more important to say Tikkun HaKol, but I don't have time for both. What's better?
Okay.
Like the Yom, like Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni.
You mean the full? You divide Tehillim in 7 parts.
Yes, but until we get finished.
All right. Tehillim is Tehillim. The Tikkun HaKol is taken from the Tehillim. Rabbi Nachman said that any 10 chapters of Tehillim are also a Tikkun HaKol. Maybe not the Tikkun HaKol, but they're also the Tikkun HaKol. They are also a Tikkun HaKol. However, that the fact that Rabbi Nachman pulled these 10 chapters together and made it what he calls the Tikkun HaKol, there's a lot of Kabbalistic reasons. We have a book called Rabbi Nachman's Tikkun, which speaks about the 10 chapters and so on. Certainly they are what's called, Rabbi Noson said it openly, that they are the klolius, the encompassing Tehillim of all the whole Sefer Tehillim. So certainly saying Tikkun HaKol has a power that you won't find in all the other Tehillim that you say. But if I were you, I would try and say both. And I say that because the power of Tehillim is unmatched. David HaMelech, when he authored Tehillim, the Svarim bring that Tehillim is the tefillos of David HaMelech, but they encompass every single Jew or Jewess from the time of creation until the time of Mashiach and further on too. Anything that anybody has a problem with, a difficulty, frustration, challenges, and whatever, all that is found in Tehillim. Tehillim basically sounds like Hashem help me, Hoshieni, and so on and so forth. It really includes all the battles, the emotional battles that we have. And we all have emotional battles. We all have difficulties, whether it's husbands, whether it's wives, whether it's children, parents, difficult moments. You have to deal with schools and all that kind of stuff, right? All this is very, very challenging. Tehillim has that, plus all the Yetzer Haras and all the other problems that we have too. And there's nothing as soothing. I can stam recommend. Did you ever try say the whole Tehillim in one shot? Right? I said it to my wife many, many years ago. We're Baruch Hashem neighbors of the Koisel. We live in Yerushalayim, so it's a little bit easier to get there. And I've been there, and I've done it many times. But I told my wife about it, and she's like, what? You know, and a 3-hour deal, you know, you can sit there and say, you know, and you got to chew your cud and whatever else it is that you got to chew while you're saying the Tehillim, and it's not that easy, you're not that familiar with it and whatnot. But she did it once or twice, and then she told her sister, you can't imagine how cleansing it feels when you sit and say the whole Tehillim. Don't do it when you have to cook for Shabbos or stuff like that, but, you know, there are times you can find a few quiet hours, or you could force a few quiet hours and just go off into the corner with a Tehillim and call out to Hashem. There is nothing greater than that. And with that, we'll talk about Rabbi Nachman's advice of hisbodedus. Hisbodedus means from the word badad, which means alone. You're by yourself. And Rabbi Nachman says every person should take time every single day and speak to Hashem. Okay? Take time every day to speak to Hashem. Tell him what's on your mind. Right? If you have what to be thankful for, the kid wasn't thrown out of school, or the kid actually brought home 100. Whatever it may be that makes you happy, you know, go ahead and thank Hashem. If you have something that's bothering you, say, Hashem, I'm troubled. I I have this problem, I have this difficulty. How do I get over it? How do I get out of this problem? How do I get out of this mess and whatnot? And so on and so forth. Talk to Hashem every day. To sum it up in the words of a friend of mine, he says, how could you ever establish a relationship with someone with whom you never speak to? Ever think of it that way? Hashem, 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 you're abstract. I have no idea what you're all about. I have no idea what's going on. If you talk to him every day, you learn to establish a relationship. There's Hashem and there's me. And I can talk to Hashem about everything. My best friend. He's not your friend. I mean, let's realize he's Hashem. But I could talk to Hashem every single day, and I could tell him, I'm happy about this, I'm sad about this, I'm frustrated, I'm challenged. Help! I can scream and yell. I can do all that. You can, and you should. Because if you do, you learn, first of all, the art of communication. Today, with these SMS or emails or whatnot, there's no more communication, right? When I was in school, a long time ago, right, we were taught how to write letters, right? You remember those days? Right? They don't have them. I don't know if they still teach it. They don't teach it, but I mean, what's the sense? You're allowed to use SMS. You don't even know how to spell. You don't even have to spell it right. So there's a certain element that we've learned to become plugged up. We don't know how to really communicate, and then you don't communicate. Talk to me. I don't know what to say. I don't know, right? Everything, bang, 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 and finish. Talking to Hashem opens up your heart, and all the feelings, the frustrations, the difficulties, the things that are bothering me day in and day out, those I could express before Hashem. And when I tell him what I feel, I learn to get in touch with none other than myself. I am in touch with myself. I know what I am feeling. I know what I need. I know what I want. I know where I want to go. If you're not in touch with Hashem, you'll never be in touch with yourself, and certainly not your family. And I'm sure there are people here who have some communication problems with spouse or with children. I'm sure it exists because it's been like that since Adam Harishon. Rabbi Noson, by the way, said once, just as a side, he said, ask anyone from, what are you working so hard for? What are you working so hard for? I says, well, I have my family, I have my children, I have to, provide for them, I have to take care of them, I have to do all of that. Rabbi Noson said, that's true. But, all that effort has been put in for 6,000 years, 5,700 years. All that effort has been put into our children. Since then, you'd think that by now we'd have that perfect child. That hasn't happened yet either. Right? We always have the children are good, they're beautiful, they're wonderful, but we have raising children, I'm sure you all know more or less what it's all about. And therefore, learn to communicate, express, tell them what you want. And Be'ez Hashem, you'll get that too. So that's Tehillim. Tehillim encompasses every single type of prayer, whether you realize it or not. The words are there. And they're David HaMelech's words, and they were said with Ruach HaKodesh. Think of it. The words you're reading were composed by David HaMelech with Ruach HaKodesh, Ruach Nevuah. There's prophecy in there. And you could partake and participate with that Ruach HaKodesh. Did you ever think of it that way? Did you? Right? It's yours. It's yours for the asking. You can have part of that Ruach HaKodesh. So that's Tehillim, and while we're at it, hisbodedus, talking to Hashem, expressing before Hashem what it is you can, what it is you should, and whatever. Okay? Are there any other questions? Yes, good. Don't feel ashamed, really. You have a question.
But the Tzaddik, why is everything, in Breslov they say everything is through the Tzaddik. So don't we have a relationship just us with Hashem, straight?
Yes, you definitely do. You definitely do. Otherwise, it borders on Christianity, right?
So why do we need
People are afraid
Tzaddik?
to say that, but I'm not, so, I don't mind getting in trouble. But, yes, the idea is there, but where do you think Christianity got it from? The guy was a Jew, by the way, and he knew the koyach of a tzaddik before he went off the path, off the derech, right? And that's what they call it, right? Yeah, so why is everything through the tzaddik? The answer is really very simple. Do you know what Hashem wants of you?
As an individual or as a whole?
As an individual, as a whole. Do you know what Hashem wants of you? He gave us a Torah. Yeah? Everything that he wants of us is in the Torah. It's there. And if you could figure everything out in the Torah, exactly what you're supposed to be doing, you wouldn't need a tzaddik. But you can't. You just can't. It's physically impossible for you to figure out everything. You can learn as much as you want. There are guys sitting in yeshiva 20, 30 years, right? They still don't know what the Shulchan Aruch says. Clear. I'm not condemning anyone, chas v'shalom. Don't get the wrong picture. But there are people sitting and learning the whole time. They still don't know exactly. There are certain Rabbonim who know, very clear. Rabbi Yashiv, right? Okay, you had Moshe Feinstein, you had certain poskim that really knew. And even then, there are people who disagree with what they've said too, right? So you need the tzaddik to explain the Torah to you so that you could understand how your position or what your position is and how you can come relate to Hashem. That's one. From the tzaddik's perspective, well, Hashem needs him only to be able to transmit to us what he wants, and only for us to be able to relate back to the tzaddik so that we could receive further information, how to go further in life. You follow that? No, really, and don't be I'm a very open guy, and I can hit you on a lot of different levels. But this is really the simplest way of understanding. Hashem and we, there is no intermediate necessary. Chas v'shalom that we should have an intermediary. As I said, it's like different religions where they figured out whatever they want to figure out to make up whatever they want to make up. We don't have that. We have Moshe Rabbeinu, a tzaddik, who was able to bring the Torah down to us, to our level. Right? But that was 2,400 years after creation. It took a time. It took a while for that to happen. Why? Because as great as Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are, and they're incredibly great, beyond anything we could imagine, even they could not bring down the Torah to us. Now Chazal tell us, Avram Avinu, how did he know what to do? The Gemara says that Avram Avinu was able to observe the entire Torah, even the mitzvahs of the Rabbanan. This is before the Torah was even given. How? And the Medrash says that he was so pure, kidneys, you know the function of kidneys? Right? Kidneys take the impurifications that are in the body, they purify them, and they get rid of the waste matter, and they retain the things that you need. Right? Kidneys are a filter. Okay? Avram Avinu's kidneys were so pure that they were like two Torahs, two fountains that would just flow forth with the Torah of Hashem. And that's how he was able to know exactly what the mitzvahs of the Torah are. This is what the Gemara says, right? And this is the Medrash, and so on. Avram Avinu, how can you have greater than that? Imagine a guy's body is so pure that every part of him, the Gemara in the Dorim says that Avram Avinu, he was called Avram, Aleph Beis Reish Mem is 243, right? He was called later on a Hay. The Hay was added to his name, 248. There are 248 organs in the body, right? He was given. He says these 5 organs that he didn't have earlier, the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, which he has no control over. You walk in the street, you see whatever you see. You hear people talking, whatever. You have no control over what somebody else is going to say or what you're going to see and whatnot. And the other one was the marital organ, whatever you want to call it. All right, but these things are they're certain involuntary reactions, emotions that come up. So Avram Avinu became master of everything. His eyes would not see what he didn't want to see. His ears would not hear what he did not want to hear, and so on. And yet he could not bring the Torah down to us. He needed Yitzchak like him. He needed Yaakov like him. He needed the Shiftei Kah, the 12 tribes, the brothers, in order to be able to bring the Torah down. And then afterwards, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to bring the Torah down for every single person. Till then, it wouldn't happen. So we need the Tzaddik to be able to take what Hashem's wisdom is, and the Zohar says openly that the Torah is really the wisdom of Hashem. So that whenever you deal with Torah, you're dealing with the wisdom of Hashem. But how would you understand it if you're a physical person in a material body, in a material world, right? How are you going to understand it? The tzaddik is able to bring it down to your level so that you could understand. And you, by following the advice of the tzaddik, you could then establish your relationship directly with Hashem. Hisbodedus, talk to Hashem, and you'll find it. Any questions? Go ahead.
She said, what about women and the tzaddik? Usually we look at men of learning and whatever. How does that apply to the women of Breslov?
Do you need advice once in a while?
Of course.
What do I do now? What do I do tomorrow? What did I do yesterday that was right or wrong or whatnot? It's the same thing. Right? Rabbi Nachman once said, why don't you make your wives for Chassidus? Right? Now, he's not telling you to go out into the field for hisbodedus in the middle of the night. He's not telling you to run into the Beis Medrash, right? But he is telling you that there are a lot of teachings that Chassidus has in general, and Rabbi Nachman specifically, that could apply to your daily life, to what it is that you have to do. Right? We all need advice. We all need good advice. Right? Avram Avinu had his kidneys. What do we use? Right? And therefore, what Rabbi Nachman teaches, he teaches simcha, where we said hisbodedus, right? Joy, happiness, right? You're going to get up some mornings and you're going to say with a wry smile, am I really supposed to be happy in this situation? Right? You're going to be hit like that, right? You've been hit like that already. I mean, I don't have to know your history to know that that's what life is all about, right? So what you have is, oh, you mean in this I also have to be happy? I have to force myself to joy? And Rabbi Nachman's answer is yes. Yes, you have to be happy, right? Why? Because if you're happy, you're in a positive frame of mind. If you're in a positive frame of mind, you will accomplish. If you're in a negative frame of mind, you won't go anywhere. And it's going to spill over into whatever it is you have to do. If you're at work, if you're a homemaker, if you have relationship with people and all different kinds of things, right? If you're not in a positive frame of mind, it's gonna spill over into every area of your life. And it's gonna ruin it. It's going to ruin it. If you're going to be happy, then you're going to be able to build on it. And you're going to be able to make something even out of the worst situations. Even out of that, you're going to be able to get something done. It's automatic, right? When you're happy, Rabbi Nachman said, never give up, right? Right, he says that. Now, when did he say that? Do you know? It was 2 months before he passed away. He had suffered 3 years from tuberculosis. He was on his way out, and he knew it, right? Because he had moved from Breslov to the city of Uman a few months before he passed away. Right? He knew he was dying. He moved there to die in Uman, which thank God for that, because if you've ever been in Uman, it's what the Russians call a city, right? You would call it maybe the mountains or something like that. Breslov looks like it's from 1400s or something. So thank God at least he moved to Uman. But whatever, he knew he was dying and he said never give up, right? Now we all have situations that we counter. The younger you are, the less you'll understand this. But as you go on in life, you'll find out that life has its unique challenges for each person. And so what do I need this for? And we want to give up. And Rabbi Nachman said, never give up. Right? He always said, look for the good parts and look for the good points in people. Right? Today, there's a movement like this. I've read about it here and there. You know, it's called Nakuda Toiva, the good points in people, right? And if you're always looking for the good, the simplicity of it is that you're always thinking and focused on good. You follow? On good. Your mind is focused on good. And therefore, you won't feel affected negatively by the bad, which exists. Today there's a thing called denial, and a lot of people, it can't be bad, or everything Hashem does is for the good. All right, now tell that to the person who was suffering, you know, a broken leg, or God forbid, a cancer or whatnot. Everything Hashem does, yeah, Hashem does everything for the good, no question. No question. But how do you feel it? How do you make it part of your life? Right? If you're focused on good, you could feel, okay, this is what Hashem wants, Baruch Hashem. It's really a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, long before Chassidus. The Mishnah says, Asay Ritzoni Kirtzoncha. I don't know about the American Beis Yaakov or whatever, but my daughters went to Beis Yaakov in Eretz Yisrael, and they all had to know Pirkei Avos by heart. They all had to know. Asay Ritzoni Kirtzoncha. Make my will like your will. Let me want what you want from me, Hashem. Right? Focus on that. Right? And then you can take the worst situations and find some good in there. Right? As Rabbi Nachman has a lesson 195 in the Likutei Moharan. Yeah. Batzor hirchaftoli. Right? In my suffering, you've expanded it for me. In other words, it could always be worse. You ever hear that expression? It could always be worse? Well, that Rabbi Nachman is saying, since it isn't worse, right, it's already, a saving grace that you can have. But these are some of the things that Rabbi Nachman taught that apply to men and women equally. Right? Okay? No, really, if you have any other questions like this. Anyone here have a husband who goes to Uman Rosh Hashanah? All right? Don't be afraid. Don't be. I was in Montreal about 20 years ago. There's a group there, Moroccan Jews, Sephardim. How they ever got into Breslov, I don't know. But they were studying Likutei Moharan. We have with an English translation with notes and whatnot. So they were studying. They asked me up there for a Shabbaton. After the Shabbos morning meal, Friday night I spoke, Shabbos morning in shul, this and that. After the Shabbos afternoon meal, all the men moved out. They left me in a room with 35 ladies, right, with their questions on Breslov. I should speak to them. Here I am, kind of cornered, surrounded, whatever. And they had questions, and they asked questions about this, they asked about that, whatever the case is. And then inevitably, I knew what was coming. And why do all our husbands have to leave us alone Rosh Hashanah with the children and all the balagan? My neighbors don't understand. Nobody what's this all about? What's going on here? And they started getting all riled up because these emotions, and sometimes, sometimes the wife could understand, sometimes, what the guy has to go through in Uman. So I said to them, listen, first of all, I want you to know that Uman is not the Ritz-Carlton or the Hilton or Disneyland or any of those other comfortable places where you go. Uman is quite backward. But more than that, you have to understand, Rosh Hashanah is not a Yontif like Sukkot, like Pesach, a family holiday. It's not. On Rosh Hashanah, we're not celebrating anything, we're on trial. And we're on trial for nothing less than our lives. We're on trial for nothing less than our lives. And quite frankly, the prosecution has spoken. All the sins I did during the year, the Sultan's there, full force. And the defense attorney, my mitzvahs, have also spoken. Now I have to face the judge, and as I face the judge, who do I want standing next to me before the judge? My wife or Rabbi Nachman?
The top advocate.
Huh?
The top lawyer, the top advocate.
I didn't hear.
Top advocate.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. I mean, Rosh Hashanah, you have to understand, is a very different situation. It's not a family holiday. It's not. It's trial. It's a trial for the wives who are left behind, especially if they have young children running around and whatnot. It's a trial for the husbands too. It really is. Right? I thank God I'm my age, whatever it is. I don't pay attention to this stuff anymore. But to younger guys, it's a problem too. But it's Rosh Hashanah. It's a time of judgment. And you have to make the right judgments. You asked before about the Tzaddik. What's the connection? The Tzaddik is my advocate. The Tzaddik is there to get me the best deal that I can for my life. So that's that story too.
My mother just whispered to me. That Rosh Hashanah, as far as my mother just whispered to me before she left, isn't Rosh Hashanah the time to Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu Melech?
Yeah.
Yom HaKippur is then? Like what?
Yeah, Reb Noson once said that the whole world screams Hamelech on Rosh Hashanah. Right? The whole world. But the coronation takes place in Uman. There you could see it happen. You could see it happen. You could see guys, young, the guy, I have arthritis. I could say, oh, I can fetch like that too. But you could see guys there who are 20, 25, 30, 40, in the prime of life, in the prime of health, okay? And they're sitting there by Rabbi Nachman's Tzion, and they're screaming and crying to Hashem to help them. Let them come close to Hashem. Let them serve Hashem. Let them be part of what the reason for creation was. Right? So Rabbi Nachman, in his time, said, many other Hasidim would be happy to have a Rosh Hashanah like you see by me, Erev Rosh Hashanah. The preparations that go into Rosh Hashanah to find out, to get close to Hashem, to feel what Hashem is like, to feel the power that Hashem really is Melech HaKol HaOretz, right? That the people, what they put into preparing for Rosh Hashanah is something that you just don't see. That it was a Ger Chassid who was in Uman a couple of years ago, and Ger Chassid, he says, I had to see him, Breslov, Uman, I had to come and see what it's like Rosh Hashanah. I came. This is the only place in the world that I heard people screaming, Ovinu Malkeinu Hachzirenu B'Shuva Shlema Lefonecho. Right? We all know what that means, right? It's the only place I saw people screaming Hachzirenu B'Shuva Shlema Lefonecho with more kavana than Kosveinu B'Sefer Parnosa V'Chalkola. Right? We all need Parnosa. But what's your priority? What is your priority? And you can see that in Uman. And I'm not going to say we don't have people there that won't display that kind of Yirah Shamayim. There's a lot of people that come to Uman. I know that. Believe me, I'm well aware of who comes and who not. But overall, you won't find a finer motley crew than you'll find in Uman with these guys. Right? Questions? Anyone know what time it is?
8:20.
Oh, okay, we have time.
The
Okay.
concept with going to the doctor or not going to the doctor.
We have a book called Crossing the Narrow Bridge where that is discussed, okay, in detail. Just to sum it up, Rabbi Nachman in his time said, anyone who doesn't bring his child for a smallpox inoculation, it's as if he murdered the child. All right? Smallpox is one of the first inoculations they give. All right? The smallpox inoculation vaccine was discovered in 1798. Rabbi Nachman passed away in 1810. So Dr. Edward Jenner from England, he's the one who found the smallpox vaccination. And it was spread out throughout the world, to help children and whatnot. So Rabbi Nachman said, take the smallpox inoculation. Now here's a man who did not agree with doctors, right? And he said, take. Rabbi Nachman passed away in 1810. That was about 20 years. I think it was 20 years before the stethoscope was discovered. You know that. To just make your chest cold and your back cold, and that's what does the stethoscope do, right? And that's the major tool. Every doctor walks around. If you don't have the stethoscope, you're not a doctor, right? But that was not even discovered until after Rabbi Nachman passed away. His polemics against doctors are legendary, right? Don't go to doctors. He says, we say in Shachris in the morning, if you daven it before Krishma, right? Borei refuos, noiros ahilos, adoin haneflois. He said, think of it. He says, Borei refuos, you're asking, Hashem to send a refuah. Noiros ahilos, when the refuah doesn't work, then you start turning to Tehillim. Tehillim is called Sefer Tehillos. So Noiros Elois. And when that doesn't work, the guy is still on the way out, then you scream Adoin Haniflois, asking Hashem for a miracle. He says, why don't you go straight to Hashem in the beginning? Why go through all the other steps? Go straight to the top. All right, we're human. We make mistakes. Well, we don't have that willpower to just forget about it. And today, what I answered there in the book is simply that there are certain medicines, certain medications that have proven positive results.
Antibiotic, strep throat type.
Whatever, something like that, pretty much so. Not every child could take antibiotics, right? We know all that too. There's a book this thick called the Physician's Desk Reference, PDR. It sits on every doctor's desk. It's got all the medications that are produced by all the medical, pharmaceutical companies in the world. If you just read through any amount of pages you want, you will find by every medicine a side effect. Right? Why would that be? Because Rabbi Nachman said, doctors, it's textbook. This disease requires this kind of medication. This is what we have. This is what we give out. Take it, fill your body with this stuff. Good or bad, fill it. You may have a side effect, if you ever take a Reader's Digest. Am I allowed to say that here? If you ever take a Reader's Digest and you read, they have like 4 or 5 page advertisement for Victoza or forgot a lot of the other medications, right? Right? They tell you this is what this medication could do to help you. If you have this condition, take this medication, and then you can have this help, right? That's on half of the first page. The rest of the 4 or 5 pages, right, are disclaimers of what could happen. Maybe if you have this problem, with that problem, with that, with this, with that, and all that kind of stuff, that you can be harmed by this thing too. So when you talk about doctors and whatnot, there are certain things that could help and certain things that don't help. And Rabbi Nachman was telling you, avoid the things that won't help, which is 90%. Most of the medications, if you would hold yourself back and not take them, you would heal yourself. The body is a phenomenal tool that Hashem created. We have a book, Anatomy of the Soul, that speaks about the physical and the spiritual powers of the body. What Hashem created is the most incredible organism. That's the word, organism, in the world. The body can really do incredible things, and it can bounce back from almost every kind of an illness, almost every kind. It can. I had, Baruch Hashem, I don't have it now, I had many years time cellulitis. I don't know if you know what that is. It's an inflammation of the blood vessels in the legs and whatnot, and other places too. But, and I had to take antibiotics, and I did. I did, because that's the way it works, right? But the body is an incredible organism that can bounce back and heal itself in almost all circumstances without certain medications. It can. Okay? We have the book Crossing the Narrow Bridge, talks about that and other things. Question. questions? I gotta leave soon.
Do you think alternative medicine would be the first step?
Alternative medicine? No. Rabbi Nachman spoke about alternative. I mean, in his time, you didn't have the pharmaceutical companies. They didn't have even aspirin and that kind of stuff. They didn't.
It's the same
Penicillin
thing.
was
It's the
discovered.
same level of Uman and bitachon. It's the same thing. It's still relying on something.
Right. Now the Ramban, going back, it's almost 1,000 years. The Ramban says, what is a doctor doing in a Jewish home? Those are the words of the Ramban. It says you have to know that the affliction that you have comes from Hashem, right? So how do you get this doctor to come take away what Hashem sent you, right? You got to turn to Hashem, like we said earlier, right? BRI Breslov. At the same time, the Rambam was a doctor, and a very good doctor was he, right? And so on and so forth. You have to know when and where and what to apply at what given stage. Okay? Alternative medicine, well, doesn't usually have the side effects of what pharmaceutical medicine has. It doesn't. All right? So, in a sense, it could be better. It could be. But again, does the doctor know which alternative, which vegetation, which plants, which to put it all together to make it the right way? So Rabbi Nachman was really addressing all, because that was the kind of medication they had in his time. Herbal. Yeah. Right.
But they also had bloodletting in those things. They also had bloodletting.
Yeah.
And other strange things.
That's the Gemara. The Gemara is in Bava Basra. The Gemara says that the Rabbi Vohu, I believe it was, he said he saw on the gate of a certain city, he says, blood says, I am at the head of all diseases. The Rashbam explains that blood carries whatever infection you have throughout the entire body. Okay? It says they had the bloodletting because that released the blood from the body. It took out the bad blood, and the body was left clean, cleansed from the infections and other illnesses that were in the blood. Thank God, I was always felt healthy, so I gave blood, I donated. Every half year, I don't know, for 20, 30 years, I would donate blood, right? That would be my bloodletting, right? About 35 years ago, a doctor said to me, you're about a month away from a stroke. Well, Hashem, it never happened. I used to give blood every 6 months, sometimes even more often, right? Always. And I always felt better after I got rid of the blood. The body cleanses itself, and the new blood replenishes usually within 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours. Your body is refreshed. You got rid of the blood that carried all the fats and all the cholesterol and all the other stuff that blood carries throughout the body. You got rid of it. So why shouldn't you be healthier? Bloodletting, Chazal, Gemara says in Sanhedrin you need 120 people that make up a city. And the Gemara lists who the 120 people are. You need a Sanhedrin, 23 people. You need 3 rows of students that sit before the Sanhedrin. So that's already 96 you got. And then you got the the witnesses, you have to have people for witnesses, you have to have the judges for this. It goes through a few things, and then it says there, a rofei, a doctor. To be qualified as a city, you have to have a doctor. And Rashi explains that's the Mekis Dam, the one who does the bloodletting. That's a doctor in time of Chazal. All right? So there you go. And that's 1,800 years before Rabbi Nachman. So, did you ever try it? Try it one day. I don't know if you're healthy, I don't know if you're pregnant, I don't know, right?
Did Rabbi Nachman also say you could cure almost everything with bread and water?
No, he said you can cure everything with bread and water, not almost everything, right? And why is that? Because the power of healing comes from Hashem. Just as the power of affliction comes from Hashem, so does the power of healing. It says if you can invoke the power of Hashem, then you could draw healing even through bread and water. Yeah. Question, could you invoke the power of Hashem? Right? It's tefillah. He said that's tefillah, prayer. Pray on that level that you're going. Everything you know is in Hashem's hands. If you could reach that level of prayer, then yes, you can draw healing through bread and water.
You have to say that water really heals, whether it's arthritis or is the book You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty, written by an Arab doctor and how he heals people. So we said, wow, you knew this already from before. You saw it just with water. Migraine headaches, it's very interesting.
You could do that. I mean, you have to just know. You have to just know what the source is. You have to know what the source is. Then you can fit the healing. Right? For every one of those stories that'll come up, I did healing through this or through that, or through magnets, or through stones, or through, I mean, there's a lot of healing, and it works once in a while. Because for this person, it could work. But on the overall hand, we don't know what's going on. And we have a generation where, you have this, you had recently an election. There was one camp and there was a Trump camp and whatever. So Trump ran on the slogan, "Make America Great Again." All right. Now one of the first things he wants to get rid of is Obamacare. All right. So the Democrats came up with a slogan, "Make America Sick Again." Right? And then, this is life. This is people. Right? They mean nothing. But really what it is that there is a Ribono Shel Olam that controls everything from start to finish. Literally. He controls everything. All he wants from us is that we turn to him. That's all. Where do you turn? Kriyas Yamsuf. I'm going to have to go soon. But Kriyas Yamsuf, the Medrash says, the Jews came to the sea. The sea, right? There was a big wall on one side, they couldn't climb that. There was a forest on the other side. The Egyptians are behind them, the sea is in front of them, right? So the Medrash gives the situation of the Jews a description. There was a dove, bird, Yonah. The dove was being chased by a vulture. So it ran into a cave with a small opening so that it can hide from the vulture. As it gets into the cave, there's a snake who wants to swallow the bird. So he can't stay in the cave because of the snake. But he goes outside, there's the vulture. There and that. And in Shir HaShirim, we have the pasuk, Hashmi'ini es koilech. Let me hear your voice. Hashem says, all I want is to hear from you who you turn to in the time of your tzara. And that's really, we're all standing every day, right? The Gemara says that parnosa of a person is as difficult as Kriyas Yamsuf. Right? Making a shidduch is difficult, it's Kriyas Yamsuf. Childbirth, Kriyas Yamsuf. Right? So we have situations of of Kriyas Yamsuf all the time. All Hashem wants is to see who we turn to when the going gets rough. Right? That's all. If you do it right, you got it right. Then Be'ez Hashem will all see a Yeshua Shlema, a Geula Shlema, right? Yeshua's for Klal Yisrael, Parnosa B'Revach, good health, all that we need we'll get, and especially Moshiach Tzidkenu, so that we don't have to fast on Asara B'Tevis.
Can I ask you one more quick question? I don't know if it's
Let the men wait, right?
Why do we have to go daven at a kever? What's the whole concept of the kever?
There was a fella in Chumash, his name was Kolev.
Right.
Kolev ben Yefuna. Right? So Kolev ben Yefuna ran to the kever of the Tzaddik, of the Ovos, in order to be saved from the Atzas Meraglim. Okay? There are several other stories in Gemara of people going to Kivrei Tzaddikim. You have it in Zohar also, you find it in Medrash a few times. What is the value of going to the kever of a tzaddik? Right? And there are quite a few reasons for it, but the easiest reason to understand is that when you go to the kever of a tzaddik and you pray, the tzaddik now owes you a favor. He owes you a favor. Why is that? Because after a person passes away, their reward in heaven, they can only go as high as the amount of mitzvahs that they did. So when you do all the mitzvahs, you build up a bank account and you enjoy the rewards. But you can only go so far on all the mitzvahs that you did. Okay? Now, even in this world, if you want to reach the top of the ladder, you have to go rung by rung. If you ever try climbing a ladder or step stool, whatever, sometimes you go up and you falter, you fall back, and then you go up again, right? In Chazal, in Musas form, it's called Yerida Tachlis or Aliyah. The going back down is intended to help you go back up, right? Sometimes a person has a temptation and they fall victim to the temptation, but then they resolve never to do that again. And that falling to temptation is what led them to really be steadfast in the future, right? You read the Tachlis or Aliyah. Even a tzaddik, as great as they may be, after 120 can go only as far as their mitzvahs allows them. But when somebody comes to the gravesite of a tzaddik and prays, right, what are you doing? You're calling that tzaddik back from his heavenly abode down to this world to listen and accept your prayers, right?
But why is he accepting? You're not davening to the tzaddik.
No, not daven. You're not allowed to daven to the
Right, so
tzaddik.
what do you mean he's coming
I
down
mean, to take
accept
it,
that
you
from
accept your request to be able to, what you want to be a Melitz Yosher for, right? So I like that.
I have
You
a
picked that up. That was
question.
good. Just 1 second. Let me finish this. So what happens is that when the tzaddik comes down to this world, he's come down here, he's had a yerida. Now when he goes back up, he goes to a higher level. That counts as a yerida, which is tachlis or aliyah. And that allows him to go to a greater level on high. Therefore, when you go to the tzaddik and you pray at his gravesite, you're actually doing something for the tzaddik, allowing him to go to a greater level. He owes you. And he will be a big Melitz Yosher that your tefillah should be accepted, and answered. Okay? One question.
I have a challenging question. How do you explain to someone?
How
do you explain to someone who's living in Eretz Israel and has the possibility, let's say on Rosh Hashanah, to go to Meras HaMachpelah and daven by the Kibbutz Tzaddikim of our Avos, to leave Eretz Israel to go to Chutz La'aretz to daven to Rabbi Nachman? Not to Rabbi Nachman, Chas v'Shalom, but to use him as a Melitz Yasher.
Right. Why would we do something like that?
Right.
The Avos never said, "Come to my grave." Rabbi Nachman said, "Come." Rabbi Nachman said, "Come." And therefore, if he said, "Come," so if you're a chassid, you go. If you're not a chassid, you don't go. It's as simple as that. Why leave Eretz Israel? There have been a lot of people involved. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef got involved with that too. He suggested to some people not to go, whatever. Right, it was a big controversy on that, because he said not to go, Rabbi Nachman said go. So it became one of our tumults in Eretz Israel. But frankly, Rabbi Nachman said, come. You want to ask, it's Chutz La'aretz. Rabbi Nachman has a lesson in the Kutim Maran. He says that the Pasuk in Tehillim 37 says, Tzaddikim Yirshu Oretz. The Tzaddikim inherit the land. Right? He explains that the Tzaddikim, because they are such great Tzaddikim, they merit that their burial plots are the same sanctity as Eretz Israel. So really, what happens is we're going from Eretz Israel to Eretz Israel. You may not want to accept it. That's all right. Right? You won't be the only one. But that's what we do. Right? Okay?
Can you still discuss the controversy about Breslov, like you were saying before? About all the questions about Breslov?
There's a lot of controversy. Which one you want to focus on? Huh?
Talk about any.
I have a question about.
Talk about the good.
Yeah, I was going to say.
About what? No, really, which part is bothering you? Just general.
It doesn't bother me anymore. It bothers other people.
Why is everyone being trying to get good to them now?
Well, some of it is a natural.
You can repeat these things to everybody. Some people, you can't repeat these things. They hear one word about the Nachman and they...
Some people, it's a natural tendency to challenge whatever comes up against what you think. Right? Somebody says something, you don't think that way, take it from a different angle. Some of it is a natural derivative in Torah, which when you have something that's a focal point in Torah, and not everybody understands it, so we argue it. It's a tendency. The whole Shas is built on that. The whole Shulchan Aruch is built on that. And yet, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. That's Machlokes Tanoim V'Amoraim, whatever. That's in Kedusha. Right? The Gemara says in Kedusha, when Kedusha is prevalent, so that you don't have hatred or, very violent controversy, because at the end, it's all for the sake of Hashem. What happens is you have to figure in the human factor. Human factor is kavod, honor. Human factor is money. Human factor is position and power and stuff like that. And when that takes root, I'm right, you can't be right, then there could be no peace among Klal Yisrael. Controversy has to rule, right? Take a look at the way the Jewish nation looks today, right? This one, that one, this one, everything. What for? right? You want to do it this way, do it this way. You want to do it that way, right? Rabbi Nachman has a statement teaching, Hanitzocha